Welcome everyone. I hope you can see my slides okay. Just drop me a thumbs up if you can. So today, great. Today I'm here to talk to you about the DARE UK Next Generation Trusted Research Environment Capabilities Funding Call, which opened a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of April. So first of all, just on housekeeping, a couple of things. If you could just make sure that your mic is muted. Sometimes Teams can be a bit annoying and it unmutes you as you enter the room. So just please double check and keep your mics muted throughout. We will have a Q&A session towards the end, and then please do feel free to unmute your mic and ask a question. If you don't want to speak when we're having a discussion, you can put it in the chat instead, and we will pick that up for you. So just feel free, either raise your hand with the raise hand function, unmute yourself to ask a question, or write the question in the chat. Just standard things, but just please remain respectful throughout, and let's keep things focused on the topic for today. And if you could keep your video off during the presentations, that would be useful as well. And just to say, the webinar is being recorded. I've already hit record, and all the slides will be shared with you afterwards for you to have as a point of reference. Okay, so in terms of the agenda for today, I'll start off by giving a bit of an overview, a high-level overview on the DARE UK programme, before moving on to focusing more specifically on this funding call. So going over what we're looking for in this call, who is eligible to apply for the call, the application process, a bit on public involvement and engagement, key dates, and then hopefully the bulk of time will be left to you to ask any questions. I'm here with my colleague Rob Baxter, who's the technical lead for DARE UK, and Deborah Oluwasanya should also be joining from UKRI to respond to any of your questions about the administrative process. And then I'll just finish off with some other dates from the DARE UK community, because it's a good opportunity to share some key updates with you whilst I have you here. So first of all, just a bit of an overview of the DARE UK programme. So DARE is focused on two things primarily. Firstly, sensitive data. So, sorry, I think someone's unmuted.
That should be the same.
Okay, so sensitive data, so data that affects people, communities, populations, and looking at data linkage. How can we connect sensitive data to help benefit people, communities, and the populations? And our mission at DARE UK and our vision is for all research and innovation to benefit from seamless, secure use of diverse sensitive data at pace, efficiency, and scale, approaching that of the open data ecosystem. So we want to revolutionize research productivity and accelerate research, all to deliver public good. The DARE mission is to put the UK at the forefront of sensitive data research and innovation by assembling the tools, technologies, and standards needed to streamline secure data linkage and access and use, So DARE has, we have 3 phases planned for DARE. We finished phase 1 in March 24, and that was design and dialogue phase, for which we had 7.5 million. And we're now into the thick of phase 2. And the focus is on building, testing, and establishing. And we've got 18.2 million earmarked for this phase, or put aside for this phase. We'll then move on to phase 3, which will be about delivering, optimizing, and federating. And that will start in April 23. The duration and the amount for that is yet to be confirmed. Phase 1, the design and dialogue phase. We did a lot. We covered a lot of ground, and what we have focused on is what now underpins phase 2. So we gathered a lot from the community. We conducted an initial landscape review and then a more in-depth landscape review. We funded a portfolio of 9 sprint exemplar projects, some of which then were taken forward into our driver projects. And then we had a portfolio of driver project works, which really focused on different aspects or solutions towards federation. We also published a recommendations report, which outlined the key challenges and opportunities to help drive forward improvements in sensitive data research. We had a public-wide dialogue where we captured a number of key learnings around public attitudes towards sensitive data linkage, trusted research environments. And we also had a number of community building initiatives, working with community groups, interest groups, and convening a number of forums. Finally, we published an early draft of a federated architecture blueprint and have since published a more recent draft of that blueprint. Now, all of this work helped us to understand the needs of the research community and to establish which aspects of work we wanted to fund and take forward. And it is that underpins what we are going to be looking at in this call. Now moving on to phase two. Phase two, we're looking at intra-TRE capabilities and inter-TRE capabilities. So really trying to drive forward solutions in those areas. And one of the things that we have funded, quite foundational, is the DARE UK Transformational Programme called Treevolution. Working with our partners, the Treevolution team, they're working on developing standards for TREs, so making it really clear what a TRE is, what their components are, the standards to help ensure that TREs can federate with each other. Also looking at AI and machine learning, federated analysis and output checking. So the Treevolution program is working on building on those things. So in phase one, they were part of the driver project portfolio of work, and they are now building on those solutions to take them further towards production readiness. To support that work, we have also funded a portfolio of TRE and SDE adopters who are working with Treevolution to test their solutions and capabilities, configure them and adopt them to help identify where there might be bottlenecks, where there might be issues, ways to improve, how to ensure that when we do take this to a much larger scale, it is rolled out with ease and success. So within that, we have a number of early adopter programs, 6, and across them, 10 different TREs we are working with, along with the Treevolution program, to test and adopt their capabilities. Now, the DARE UK Transformational Programme is threefold. The first foundational aspect is Treevolution, the partners who are building and developing those solutions. Secondly, as I just said, is the TRE adopters. And the third important component is researchers who will be doing science, using those solutions and capabilities to help deliver impact. And that may be around economic data, care and social data, health data, etc. So with that, we aim in phase 2 to launch a funding opportunity where we will be funding researchers to work with the TREs and the partners who are building to conduct real-world research, answering research questions using the capabilities to be developed. And I'm pleased to share that the pre-announcement for that funding call has been published today, and I will share links with you later on so that you can have a look, get some more information about that funding call, and when it does open, which will be in September, submit an application for that if of interest. We're also working very closely with the community. So part of phase 2 funding was to support community groups, interest groups and working groups, working on discrete pieces or just discussing and focusing on different concepts and issues relating to TREs. So we have a number of community groups that have been funded, and we're working very closely with them to support and drive forward improvements in the sensitive data linkage space. So those are some of the examples of the community groups that we have funded in phase 2. Now, I say all this because this program, the Next Gen funding call, is all about innovation. It's about tackling and addressing challenges that haven't yet been addressed in the work we have funded. So as I mentioned, we've got Treevolution looking at standards, AI and ML, machine learning, federated analysis. We've got the adopters working with them. We've got researchers conducting research. And we have the community working on different aspects. But now it's about what have we missed? What else do we need to address that will help the UK to move forward sensitive data research and enable research to happen at scale and pace? So that is what this funding opportunity is all about. Where are the gaps? And just to say, public involvement and engagement underpins all that we do. So it is central and runs through all of the work we are funding, and will also be pivotal and very important in the work that we fund through this funding call. So just to move on more specifically now to the next gen capabilities call. As I said previously, we're looking at or looking for innovative applications which address challenges and needs in the TRE landscape, but they need to be beyond those developed in the transformational program. So I do just recommend that you do spend some time. I've touched on it, but not in complete detail. Look over what we have funded, in the transformational program, and ensure that you're not doing the same or proposing to do the same as they're already doing it. We're looking for new ideas here, novel approaches. So things like early stage innovation in federated trusted research environment infrastructure, conceptualizations of things, early testing, technical validation, and we'd like you to build upon the insights that we gained from the landscape reviews that we conducted in phase 1 and the Dare UK Federated Architecture Blueprint, which really sets out our approach to enabling federation. Now, this call, we want you to bear in mind some key framing assumptions. So, to factor these into your thinking when you're thinking, okay, so based on these assumptions, what solutions might be useful? And these are some of the assumptions. So first of all, that, the UK's infrastructure for sensitive data, it will be federated, it needs to be federated. And when we say that, we mean that individual organizations will provide services into an ecosystem which interoperates and interacts across the internet. There's also an assumption, when we've gained these assumptions from the research that we've done, from the many conversations we've had across the research community, the landscape reviews, the community work, etc. This is where these assumptions come from. So another assumption is that there will be many such services, and these services may be provided by the public, private, or third sector, and they should be agnostic to support this. Another assumption is that there'll be a secure, standardized, software-defined network infrastructure between these services. And the Dare UK Federated Architects Blueprint describes our preferred four-corner architecture for this infrastructure. We also assume that information will be exchanged between services across the network using a small number of standardized structured object formats. So for example, RO crates or the GA4GH task execution services. Finally, another assumption is that registry services will exist to record the membership of the network and the other required information sets. So for example, common research identifiers. And these things we put into place to help provide the necessary trust and monitoring services for the secure network infrastructure. So we ask that you consider these assumptions when you're proposing solutions in your application. We also are looking for applications that align closely with Dare UK's vision. So our vision to enable sensitive data research at pace. I'm not going to go through this list, the font's quite small, but it is taken directly from the call specification. And it lists some areas that we would be interested in seeing applications from. And I just want to say, importantly here, that this is not an exhaustive list. This is what we have identified as being useful areas of focus based on the research we have done. But we do not necessarily know everything. There may be other useful solutions that you identify outside of this list. So please do bring those forward, because we're looking to, drive forward innovation and improvement. So this list is suggested topics that we have identified as being useful, but it's not an exhaustive list at all. So please do feel free to propose other ideas outside of this. In terms of who can apply for this call, you do have to be a UKRI eligible organisation, and on the UKRI website it does set out quite clearly who those organisations are. There's a list of organisations. If you are unsure, please do contact UKRI for further detail, but you must fit into that. Your application, your project can have other partners outside of that, but UKRI sets up very clearly what the guidelines are around them. For example, if it's an industry partner, you need to make sure that you complete, well, you have a look to see if you are required to complete the industry collaboration framework form. So we'd welcome definitely participation from industry, but UKRI does have very clear caveats around industry participation and the way that should work. So please ensure that you do read around that and take the necessary steps. In terms of the funding available, so the total fund is £2.250 million. And for each project, the full economic cost can be up to £390,000. And the MRC will fund 80% of that. So that's about, not about, that is £312,000 that MRC will fund of the total effect of your project. Now, this application is being run through the new UKRI funding service. So you can't submit it through the former JES system. It must go through the funding service. And in order to submit an application, your organisation has to be registered first. So please do check and ensure that you are registered. If not, there's a contact email address for you to get in touch with. It does take at least 10 working days. So please do check, as soon as possible, so that if you aren't registered, you can get that sorted so that doesn't become a barrier to applying for the funding call. And the deadline for applications is a very hard deadline, 4 o'clock, no later, on Thursday, the 5th of June. In terms of how your application will be assessed, you'll note that in the how to apply section, it sets out the questions, each of the questions that you'll be asked, and it has a heading in each section saying what the assessors are looking for. Essentially, that list is what will be given to the assessors. So do refer to that very closely and ensure that you address each of those points, to maximize your chance of success. The application or review process will involve an independent expert review panel who will look at all the applications and score them. And based on their scores, the applications will be shortlisted, and shortlisted applicants will then be invited for a panel interview. And that will take place in August 2025. So just bear that in mind when you're booking your holidays, if you are going on holiday in the summer. And then following the panel meeting, the panel will make their funding recommendations. And we aim by the end of September at the very latest to communicate those outcomes with all of you. So you should know by then whether or not your application was successful. In terms of public involvement and engagement, I just wanted to call this out because it is something that is very, very important to the Dare UK programme. Demonstrating trustworthiness is one of our key pillars. We really want to ensure that there is trust and transparency embedded throughout all of our work and our funded work. So one of our requirements is that a project team must include a dedicated PIE lead. And in the project plan, it must clearly set out and include PIE plans. And we have a quite comprehensive public involvement and engagement guidelines document, which really sets out our expectations in terms of reporting, monitoring, evaluating PIE use. So please do refer to that and ensure that it is well addressed within your application. Just moving on now to just a summary of the key dates. So the call opened on the 4th of April, almost a month ago, time flies. And we have one further drop-in session. Today was a webinar, but on the 22nd of May, 2 weeks before the closing date, we just have a drop-in webinar. It's just for anyone who might have any additional questions. Maybe you're scrambling, completing the application, something crops up, and it's just an opportunity for you to pop in, ask us any questions that you may have, and for us to then provide responses to those. So I will post a link in the chat to that later on, but do sign up if you feel it'll be useful. Come along and ask any final questions you have. And then the deadline is the 5th of June, as I said before, at 4 o'clock, not 4:01, 4 o'clock, but preferably not 3:59 either, maybe like 12 o'clock, just in case, because, issues can always crop up. So better safe than sorry. And then funding panel meeting in August, funding decision by September. And then the projects will be 12 months long. So they'll start hopefully around September 2025 and end September 2026, depending on contracts and etc. But it will be a year, sorry, the project duration. So enough of me talking. I'm now going to open up to you. I'll stop sharing my screen for you to ask any questions that you might have. And myself, Rob Baxter, Deborah, who I believe is here, or if not, hopefully will be joining soon. We'll do our, yeah, Deborah's here. Deborah, sorry. We'll do our best to answer your questions. And if there aren't any that we can't respond to now, we will pick them up later and ensure that we do get a response back to you all. Stop sharing my screen. Okay, so first question from Milan. Do we need to budget for attending any Dare UK events? So where we stipulate events, Dare does support with expenses for the Dare events. I think you should always have a budget for events generally, so wider events outside of Dare UK. But we do tend to support the people we fund by covering expenses to our events. Next question, regarding the equipment cost, the limit is shown as less than 25,000. Does this refer to a single piece of equipment or the total cost of all equipment? On this one, because this is UKRI guidelines, Deborah, do you mind if I defer to you on this? Do you have an answer at all?
Yeah, it's a single piece of equipment cannot exceed 25,000.
Thank you, Deborah. Martin.
With the sort of PIE sort of integration, the overall budget isn't huge. So is the goal here to like have separate PIE activity, or is are these projects expected or able to hook into the kind of core Treevolution, their UK PIE activity?
That's a good question. I think PIE, it should be costed in within your projects, at least an element or aspect of PIE. But yes, we as Dare UK we are undertaking a lot of PIE activities and have a central, I guess, resource of public members that can be drawn on, but I don't think that applicants should be relying on that. I think it does need to be costed into your applications as well, elements of PIE. I don't know if anyone has anything to add there from my team, Rob or Deborah.
No, I think that's right, Michelle. I mean, there is the broader activity, and synergy with that would make a lot of sense. But we do require each project to have, a defined and impactful, I guess, public engagement strategy of their own.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, I think Gregory went first. So Gregory.
Yeah, thank you. So on the web page, it says one of the things the project should include is open source software development and data sharing. So does that mean for projects to be funded, there has to be some component of sharing data to the wider community as part of the project?
Yes. So all our work, we want it all to be open and available for everyone to make use of, just to help drive forward things. So yes, it should be open source. It should be available for others to use. Again, Rob,
Okay.
Rob, do you want to add anything there?
Nothing particularly to add. I mean, there is a general UKRI policy that open source is the default position, so it's no different to that.
Great, thank you.
Emily?
Yeah, I would just say that doesn't preclude, let's say, working with an industry partner who has a particular bit of software that you're wanting to utilize or test or whatever. It's more around if this is funding software development, then the policy generally is that should be shared so that other trusted research environments or other groups can utilize it, scale it, and that feeds back into the community, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Emily. Just call out a question in the chat that's already been answered, but I think it's quite an important question to draw attention to. So Jodie asks whether applicants must be researchers working within the specific 10 TREs that our work has identified. Just to say, no, you don't have to work with the TREs we're already working with. You're not restricted to that in any way. So just to make that very clear to you all. Edward has a question. So for costs to support the use and development of open source software for project delivery. So improving extending existing software for a common data model would be in scope. Rob?
Yeah, I've answered that in the chat. In my opinion, yeah, that's definitely in scope.
Great. Okay. And then we have a question from Becca Wilson. Is there an expectation to demonstrate a proof of concept with real data, or could synthetic data be used given the timescale of the funding? Yeah, certainly given the timescales, it's fine to use synthetic data. You know, if it's something that we see as being very valuable and useful and we take forward in later stages, that would be something that might come in using real data. But for now, in this instance, using synthetic data is perfectly fine.
I'd even take that a step further. I mean, we are really looking here for next generation capabilities. So demonstrating even with fake data, dummy data, but demonstrating something that's clearly relevant to the TRE space. There would not be time at all to get any real data. Even synthetic data could be a challenge, but it's really the technical or data or organizational capability indeed that we're interested in. So, you know, as long as it's something that clearly could add value to the TRE space in future development, then it would be absolutely fine.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, we had a question from Harry, just saying that it seems to suggest in the guidance that you must have been funded in 23 quarter price to school. And yes, I've just seen, sorry, Emily has responded that it is not the case. You do not have to have been funded previously to apply for this call. Yeah, and yeah, that would be really useful if you could show us where, because that shouldn't be implied at all. See, I'm getting a bit lost. Are there any questions that haven't yet been picked up in the chat? I'm just doing a quick scroll through. I think we've addressed them. Emily?
Yeah, I know you've already covered it, Michelle. But just to add a little bit of clarification on do you need to work with the 10 TREs that have already been funded? There is a core DARE program which is looking at federation, AI, disclosure control, and interoperability and standards, and that's some core fundamental work kind of going forward with 6 projects covering 10 TREs, testing those new capabilities. This call is separate from that. As in that work's ongoing. Those TREs are testing all of these things. This is looking for new ideas which aren't already funded elsewhere, and so absolutely it can be more than those 10 TREs that we're looking at. We're looking for new innovation in this space, but it will also be that these new ideas are under the DARE landscape and the DARE bits of work going on, and so where it makes sense to do so, if there's already some work going on in a particular standard in some of these other activities over here, and some of the new work coming in from this call makes sense to work together. That's also great, but this is very much not a requirement of this call. We just need to make sure it's working within the sort of the same general principles.
Thanks, Em, that's really useful. Question from Martin around the timeline for the project, so the delivery window, and whether there's some flexibility around that. Whilst the projects may not start in September, but it may be October, there isn't flexibility in terms of the start and end date once that is set. We need the outcomes from these projects to inform phase 3 of the program, and so we need to capture those learnings and use that to then develop our plans. And there's also things like financial constraints as well, so the spends. So there wouldn't be too much flexibility at all in terms of the start and finish date. And it will be that the portfolio programs all follow the same delivery timeline. So it'll be set, it'll be that all X, however many are funded, start on this date and finish on that date. So we will set a timeline and it will be reasonably hard. Any other questions at all? Yes, so I will share all the slides after the session, so you have those for your information. Okay, so I'm just going to put my slides back on. Probably going to be in the random. Just navigate to the right one. Just a couple of things to say. So in terms of questions, please, any other questions, if they crop up, feel free to send an email over to the informatics help desk at MRC, and they will respond to those questions. And in terms of just using the new funding service, if you have any problems there or any questions, there's a different email address for you to contact. There is also a telephone number on the website. I'll share that in the follow-up email to this. But yeah, please, any questions, feel free to get in touch. And as I said before, there is also the opportunity in the drop-in session on the 22nd of May to come in and ask any further questions. Just see Martin's got a follow-up question there. So ruling out these projects running to 31st December. I think that's a reasonably fair reading. I mean,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Martin.
Yeah. I know I think you said something like reasonably firm, but I guess that's if they start, if you can't get the decisions out till late September, it might be 1 month, but not able to kind of do most of the work in that calendar year.
Yeah, I can see Fergus's. Go on, Fergus.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in here. I mean, so at this stage, September 2026 is hard. You could potentially start a little bit later than September 25, but of course you're giving yourself less time to some extent for delivery. But it's a fairly hard end date, right? So yes, Martin, 2026 is not a discussion. December 26 is not possible, at least status today.
Thanks, Fergus. I just thought to give a couple of other updates whilst I had an audience. So first of all, we have another landscape review open. So I shared previously that we conducted 2 landscapes reviews in phase 1, but it's important that we get a refreshed view of the landscape and reach out to each of you to get an understanding of things you're working on, things that maybe are challenges, key opportunities. So we have a survey that has been published and out for a couple of weeks now. The deadline for responses is the 6th of June, and it's for anyone who's working in an organization that manages processes or provides access to sensitive data. And we'd like 1 response per organization. So it's just a plea to talk to your teams, find out whether someone has submitted a response as yet. If they haven't, identify who the best person is to do that, and please do respond to the survey. I will share a link in the follow-up email. I'll share a link to the survey and make it very clear where to locate that. And then just to say, I mentioned it earlier on, but excited to share that we have today released a pre-announcement for a real-world research exemplar funding opportunity. So the actual opportunity will open in September and close in November. And there is between 365,000 and 609,000. Well, the projects can be up to that amount, and UKRI will fund 80% of that. And the purpose of that funding opportunity is to invite research teams from across UKRI to partner with TREs to deliver research using the capabilities that have been developed through the transformational program, so through Tree Evolution. So it's just a taster, a hint of what is coming, and there's a lot more. Yeah, thank you, Fergus. Fergus has put in the chat a link to that pre-announcement for you to have a read and get some more information. You can start having conversations with your research teams and other TREs and think about putting in an application for that funding opportunity. And that is all from me. Just to say, please stay in touch. We have the Dare UK website, we have a newsletter that you can subscribe to, and we're also on X and LinkedIn. So please do follow us. And I'll just put up some QR codes in a moment. Yep, some QR codes that take you directly to those respective pages so that if you aren't already following us, you can connect via those platforms. So that's all from me today. Just a big thank you to each of you for joining. We look forward to seeing your applications and all the best with them. And as I said before, please do feel free to ask any questions that you have via the email address shared previously.